up ahead. Affirmative 612.
Scott, my friend, we talk about all kinds of stuff here on the podcast, but we don't really talk about what, or at least maybe we haven't, what it means to be a client, like come on board, start working with you, right? So we talk about all the things that for pilots and things to think about, but what does it mean to sit down with you? So let's go through some of that stuff today. You doing all right this week, my friend?
Yeah, man. I'm ready to get through this, ready to get through winter. I mean, it's February, early February here. So, we're not even halfway through it, but especially here in Ohio, but, yeah, man, we're just plowing on through. It's been a cold one.
It has been. Well, I saw this morning, you and I were just talking about the weather, that cyclone bomb that hit everywhere this weekend. And it's the time we're taping this, it's Groundhog Day, and the little rodent saw his shadow. So I guess 6 more weeks. So unfortunately.
We'll see.
Yeah,
we'll
right.
see.
Exactly. But anyway, enough of that. Let's get into the conversation here. So talk about what does it look like when somebody comes on board? Like you sit down, you do the initial consultation. What are you kind of going through?
Yeah. So, I mean, kind of at a high level, like if I had to break it down, and we'll kind of break these down each way. It all starts with an analysis, and then we're going to get into plan development, plan proposal, plan implementation, and then plan maintenance. So all those things are really important, I think, to longevity wise, getting to where we want to land. But it's all going to start with really the analysis up front. So, and that analysis up front is what, not only of the investments, but where are we saving in terms of what kinds of accounts, not just the 401k, but is it all pre-tax? Is it Roth? Is it after tax, et cetera? Do we have any cash balance plans or non-deferred compensation that we're saving in? Are we saving in a brokerage account or IRAs or Roth IRAs or whatever the case is? That initial analysis, I think, starts to give us some insight into the saving behaviors. Then we want to look at the investments. What do we own? How are we managing it? How are we rebalancing? Those kind of things. And again, that insight, I think, gives us into a good insight into, what kind of, investor we're working with, and what are some of the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, or threats, if you've ever heard of SWOT analysis, that kind of go and in with that person's behavior. And so, from there, we want to understand what their income is and what their income trajectory is, whether they have any small business activity, things of that nature. We cover that ground pretty quick. One thing we like about the folks we work with is, they know their numbers, they know their information, and they're able to typically get it out pretty quick. So we cover the analysis side pretty fast. And then we talk about the kind of the results of that analysis too, right? I mean, hey, if we can predict the future, which we can't with precision, but, collectively we can kind of predict it pretty decent, in terms of using long-term averages and the trajectory you're on from a tax saving standpoint and those kind of things. I mean, there's definitely some knowns and then there's definitely some unknowns and assumptions, but we can at least do some modeling there. So that's kind of like the front end analysis side. The next would be like the plan development, right? And again, when I talk about the planning process, that's only going to be as good as that initial analysis is. If there's key things that we haven't, uncovered during discovery, we're going to miss some things in terms of the plan development and what this household is trying to accomplish. So when we get into the plan development side, I like to look at a handful of different things. I mean, first off is, high level goal setting. And goal setting to me, I would probably even just update that to direction setting, right? Because our goals change over time. We might have a goal to retire early, and then as we get up closer and our kids are gone and we're making more money than we ever made and enjoying work more than we've ever made it, a lot of people end up working longer than they ever thought they would. When you're in your 40s and you got a bunch of kids at home and work is stressful and kids are stressful and all this kind of stuff, it can feel like, man, I need to try to get done early. But a lot of times late stage career folks end up, for our pilots, end up going all the way to 65 because they're enjoying it. They got the most seniority, most vacation, and most flexibility, and it gets hard to turn it down because they still enjoy it.
Well, in the house is different. You may be empty nesters at that point for a number of years, right? So it's like you still have something, and we've talked about this often, you still have a purpose. And a lot of times retirement or retirees struggle with what's my purpose when I'm no longer who I was.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and I think, to me, that development part is really important. That's probably, especially if we're working with them and their spouse, that's the part where we start to really uncover, what are we actually trying to get out of, this journey of saving and investing. The money's for something, but let's get intentional about, discovering what those goals are. And then ultimately translating that right into, the different, more so the technical functions, right? Tax planning, retirement income planning, contingency and planning and risk management, and then money management. And so when we kind of look across those, we want to get a good strategy to, okay, how do we balance tax efficiency for today and tax efficiency over our lifetime?
Right.
One portion of it. And there's making sure that we're doing all the things that we can do based off of my income sources, and what I have going on. And also where I want to land when I retire. I mean, maybe I want everything in pre-tax because I could defer it all as much as possible. Most people I meet that are in that situation in retirement are like, shoot, wish I would have saved not just in my 401k pre-tax bucket and diversified a little bit, but, it's just kind of talking through those things and getting clear on, hey, how do I get a vision for where I'm going to land? And again, from a precision standpoint, we're not going to be 100% precise, but we can be like very directionally correct. Absolutely. And so that's where I think, taking a little bit of time to just set the direction and get clear on what's important to you in these different technical areas. And then, shocker, writing them down is important. And again, it's like back to the estate planning side. Okay, how much do we want to leave behind for the kids, or how much do we want to save for college for the kids, and what's the best way to do that? And then again, looking at things like risk management. Okay, how do I, if I couldn't fly for my entire career, how does that impact us? If my wife isn't staying at home and we want her to stay at home, how much money do I need to be making? If we want her to keep working and she wants to keep working, how could we facilitate maybe an early retirement for both of us if we do that? And what are the trade-offs? So again, just exploring those things and then documenting them, and then just giving ourselves a base plan to operate off of. And then we can always deviate from there.
Right. So then you take all these different things, you've gathered all the information, you've developed all this kind of structure, you stress test it, right? Then we start looking at testing it under different scenarios. And then once you kind of settle in with the client on, everything feeling good, locked in, that's when you kind of move into that proposal phase, I guess, and then the implementation phase. Yeah.
The proposal phase is more so like, hey, here's what we're thinking based off of everything you've told us, kind of like, I'll say, qualitatively, and then all the data that we have quantitatively. So,
okay,
you provided some data, we've, run the numbers on the data, and then here's what we're recommending, whether it's, adjustments to savings, adjustments in our investment philosophy, and just adjustments in what accounts we want to save in.
Okay.
Maybe we want to prioritize saving in some different accounts compared to what the person's currently doing. Yeah. Or many times for some of our younger guys, they got excess cash flow and they don't know what to do with it. And so we're helping solve that issue too. So,
okay. And then you dial it all in, and then that's when you say, everybody's in agreement. Person wants to come on board, all that kind of stuff. That's when we say, okay, now we get into the implementation and the work. Yeah, and the implementation, at least on our side of it, is like we're trying to keep it very, very simple for our folks. I mean, it's like sign here. We'll go through in detail what we need to make sure they understand obviously what they're signing, but the account, right? The account setup and all that kind of stuff. But when it comes to the implementation side of things, I mean, that's our team is doing, most of that heavy lifting, and providing that for experience for them to just, be able to tell us what they need, and then we're taking care of it for them. Right. I mean, that's why people hire financial professionals to begin with, right? So it's like once you develop the plan, hey, you guys do the heavy lifting here because I want to be able to focus on being me and doing the things that I do, and I'm paying you guys to do this. And that's the other question that comes up a lot too, is like, well, how does the fee structures work and things of that nature? And advisors get paid in different ways, right? So there's nothing wrong with asking the person that you're doing a consultation with, what's your fee structures? How does that look?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that's something that, we typically will handle that in the very first meeting, right? Where we're going to talk about, how we bill either for a plan if needed, consulting, or percent of assets that we're managing, whatever the case is, based off of what, problem set we're solving for the client. So,
right.
And again, I mean, the magic for the client in achieving outcomes is all about plan implementation. I have a friend of mine who's, I'll say like a DIYer, he does it all himself. And when he was working through some planning things, about a year ago, I said, hey man, where'd you land with all this? And he said, man, it took me about a year to get through it, but here's the things that I did, and And to me, that's a little bit of where procrastination can just creep in, where if somebody's not sure what they want to do, they'll just deal with it later, or they're busy, or let's say they got family stuff going on, or they're upgrading and they just get busy with other priorities, and so to me, I think the implementation side is really where most advisors are adding most of their value, because they're getting it done. They're getting it done quickly. They're making it easy for the client to get it done. And then ultimately, I mean, that's where results are happening, is when we get things done. I mean, everything else is wasted time if you're not going to move forward quickly through and into implementation.
Okay. And then maintenance, right? So, and this is, I think, the part people want to get to, most people, right? They want to get to where it's like, hey, we've got this good plan. We've built everything. And the first year, I think people kind of are a little, they're a little nervous. How's it going to work, right? How's that going to happen? How do we pull money from our different accounts, right? So that's kind of the struggles that new retirees have. It's like, how are we doing all this? But I think once you've walked through it, then you get to that maintenance phase. That's where you're hopefully going to be just, making those annual tweaks or those little adjustments here or there, or as needed, I'm assuming.
Maintenance is, it's vital. I mean,
for sure. Yeah.
Our pilots know that for sure, in terms of their aircrafts, our homes, our cars, it's no different here. And again, if I don't have a lot going on, meaning I don't have, I'm not actively saving, I don't have a ton going on, then I don't have a ton to maintain. But if you got a lot of income, you got a lot of savings going on, a lot of investments to take care of, planned maintenance is vital to getting, I think, as close to ideal outcomes as we can control. We can't control what's going on all the time.
I mean, and you talked about, risk tolerance being one of the conversations pieces. Obviously, that's a huge piece for any planned maintenance, because that's going to change year over year, because you're not going to feel as aggressive, or maybe the plan requires you to be aggressive, but you don't feel comfortable with it, right? So there's going to be things you're going to have to work through.
Well, and the market has a vote here, right? So
absolutely.
When the market is doing certain things, if we never want to react to the market, we want to act on the plan. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, that's not to say that we don't do certain things when the market behaves a certain way. I mean, when there's opportunities to proactively, rebalance and take advantage of certain asset classes being high and low that benefit us and our clients, absolutely, we want to do those things. It's not, that's not emotionally reacting to the market.
Well, and hopefully not. Yeah, hopefully not. I mean, at the time we're talking, like we said, it's Groundhog Day. On Friday, I saw several headlines. Market crashes again was the headline they used. It was down like 0.3%, on a couple of different indices, right? But they got to go with that crash word, right? And then they put again, and then at the time we're taping, at least right now, it's back up, right? So Monday mid morning or whatever. So it's very inflammatory stuff constantly, which does make you react emotionally.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, one of the challenges on the planned maintenance side is even if somebody, let's say that they take time to build their own plan, and then there's, I think, a good portion of people that will do that and then not implement it. Right.
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
The accountability just get busy, other priorities, whatever. Well, then I got to get through implementation and then maintaining. And so, obviously I think the higher the income you have, the more assets you have, the more important maintenance gets. And so maintenance gets more and more important the more successful and the longer you're in the game.
Yeah.
Because the stakes are just that much higher. When you think about trying to do a handful of things a year to make a 3 to 4% improvement in how I'm doing, let's say, quote unquote, whether it's tax efficiency, reducing expenses, taking advantage of market up and downs with rebalancing, whatever the case is, the 3 to 4% on $100,000 means a lot less than somebody with $4 million. And so the same kind of work has a much larger impact on it. So, it's no different than maintaining my 96 Dodge Neon versus maintaining some, super expensive sports car. You can tell I'm not
you got a 96 Dodge Neon?
Oh, dude, that was, back in high school, you know what I mean? So,
right. Yeah.
Back in high school, that was, that was just what I had. It was what I could afford.
I was going to say, please don't say it was cool, because it wasn't.
Oh, it wasn't cool. It wasn't cool. That's for sure. So,
good stuff. But you do got to maintain them. I got a 52-year-old car sitting outside there, and you got to maintain them. So,
but the maintenance on that thing was, it was probably pennies compared to what it costs to, a super fancy sports car today.
Oh, yeah. Well, unfortunately, classic cars are not easy to maintain anymore. And so, I mean, they're easy to work on, I should say, but they're not cheap to work on. Right.
Right.
Like everything in the world.
Yeah.
So, that's kind of an overview, Scott, right? So I think a lot of times people feel like it's daunting to go sit down with a financial professional or whatever. It's like, I really kind of probably should, but man, it's going to be a lot of work, or it's going to, whatever. And that's why you got to find somebody that resonates with you. And it's a two-way street too. I want to kind of finish with that it's got to be a good fit both ways, right? For the client and then also for you, because if you guys can't have good communication and aren't working well, then you're defeating the purpose.
Absolutely. And I think, realistically, Mark, when you look at, when you look at the different, I'll say, outcomes that people can be driving towards with the different goals that they have.
Yeah.
It's important to, have somebody that can, get you to a point where you have a clear vision for yourself. Most people don't walk around day to day and think about, let me get my vision for what I want to accomplish with my savings and investments. Nah, man, they're just driving on with life and work. It is what it is.
They're driving that Dodge Neon. Yeah.
But I think, one of the things on, I guess, my side of it is like, we try to reduce the resistance to the process as much as possible.
Okay.
It's like going to the dentist at times, right? I mean, my wife hates going to the dentist, absolutely hates it. So, as quick as we can take care of these problems and get them off your plate and get implementation and get you to maintenance mode, we want it to be a very easy lift on the part of the client, as easy as possible, but still driving towards the right direction. So
there you go. Love it. So if you got questions, folks, you need some help, reach out to Scott. And get some time onto the calendar. We'll have links in the show descriptions down below. Make it very, very easy for you to do. And don't forget to subscribe to us on Apple, Spotify, and of course on here on YouTube. And leave a comment down in the sections below. If you got a question for Scott, ask him right here on YouTube as well. I'm sure he'll get back with you. But leave a comment, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, all that good kind of stuff. And that way you catch new content when it comes out. So Scott, my friend, thanks for breaking it down, brother.
All right. Thanks a lot. We'll see you guys soon.
Always appreciate it. We'll see you next time here on the Wealthy Pilots Podcast with Scott Osborn. Again, don't forget to check him out online, retireairlines.com. We'll see you next time.
Hey everyone, real quick, if you haven't grabbed Scott's Financial Flight Control Toolkit yet, now is the time. This is packed with tons of helpful resources and tools like this, Scott's book, The Dichotomy of Wealth, which is a pilot's guide to maximizing wealth and cash flow in retirement. You also get access to some great guides like this one, Advice Matters, which breaks down 4 key ways a good financial advisor can help you boost your returns over time. And guides like this one on the pitfalls of emotions when it comes to investing, and this one on the HCM byline investment strategy, and more. So if you'd like your very own Financial Flight Control Toolkit, just click the link in today's show description, and Scott and the team will be happy to get one sent your way at absolutely no cost to you.
Information is for illustrative purposes only and does not constitute tax, investment, or legal advice. Always consult with a qualified investment, legal, or tax professional before taking any action.